I'm trying to be a critic. I have a tie now. Ties are cool. So here are my top 6 Rik Mayall performances of all time. Why top 6? Because I can't be asked to think of 10. Or even 11.
Once in every lifetime comes a love like this. Oh, I need you, you need me. Oh, my darling, can't you see? Young ones, darling, we're the young ones. The young ones.
So yes, just once Thatcher thought she'd gotten away, Rik is coming for you once more. So you may ask, how can I pick 6 performances from a guy who openly admits he did the same role and the same jokes for 30 years? Because I'm a fanboy! So let's take a look at what I think, in my opinion, are his greatest roles, not just for what he delivers, but also what he tries to achieve, and also, well, fuck it, it's Rik Mayall, so anything he touches is fucking amazing. You want to see my Drop Dead Fred review? Drop Dead Fred stars Rik Mayall. 10 out of 10. Yeah, that's my review. So let's take a look at his career. The life, the times, the laughs of the Rik fucking Mayall. The legend, the man, again a legend. So yes, at number 6 is the comic strip presents Mr. Jolly Lives Next Door. I would show you, but something that I could have watched online for the last 6 months has suddenly been blocked. Even in my country, where the copyright is held by Channel 4. So, begs the question, what the fuck? Is someone actually trying to cash in on this? No, you can't watch Mr. Jolly because now Rik Mayall's dead, you're gonna have to fucking pay us for that? If that's true, you need to fucking go to hell. Because if that is the case, and you have done that, you're worse than Thatcher, which makes you worse than Hitler. Granted, you didn't kill 6 million Jews, but still pissed off a lot of people. So, time to get creative on how I tell you about Mr. Jolly Lives Next Door.
Rik Mayall plays possibly one of his slimiest characters of all time, and that is saying something. Paired as usual with Ade Edmondson, the scraggly lowlives who run Dreamy Time Escort Agency, and yes, these two roustabouts run an escort agency, and they are escorts. Imagine these drunken, gin-soaked, greasy guys arriving at your door instead of Sarah Ferguson. Well, you wouldn't mind, as you are a respectable man, and didn't want Sarah Ferguson anyway. So basically, Rik and Ade operate from an office above an off licence, that they spend most of their time devising ingenious ways of stealing delivery from. Much of the comedy is a pure precursor to Bottom. Well, most of Rik's comedy is just a precursor to Bottom. So Mr. Jolly, played by the late Peter Cook, is just a regular kindly old man who seems to go through a lot of fairy liquid. Actually, he's a crazed killer for hire. The plot revolves around the undynamic duo being mistaken for hitmen. One of the best scenes comes from when they con an Asian businessman to fund their drinks binge, and it's hilarious. One of the funniest things is their tour of London, which consists of old English pub after pub after pub, and finally an illegal drinking establishment. So since they're escorts, I know, how random, when they receive a note meant from Mr. Jolly with the words "Take out Nicholas Parsons," they see this as a job of a lifetime. Little do they know that take out does not mean drag him around town under the guise of competition winners. Eventually, the criminal gang that want Nicholas Parsons taken out catch up to our pair and force them to attempt the hit themselves. All in all, it's actually hilarious. And with some of the twists and turns, it has a Guy Ritchie feel to it. You can log on to Channel 4's website and it's available to watch there somewhere. It's very hard to find. Filthy Rich and Cat Flap. Filthy Rich and Cat Flap ran for 6 episodes in 1987 and starred Rik Mayall, Ade Edmondson and Nigel Planner, re-teaming once again after Young Ones. Rik plays Gertrude Richie Rich, a completely self-obsessed egomaniac. Celebrity. Well, actually, he's a down-and-out actor with no real claim to fame, and his own delusional nature coupled with his sleazy agent Ralph Filthy's despicable, desperate behaviour. Richie Rich lives in a daydream world where he thinks he is actually TV royalty. Ade plays his alcoholic minder. Now, since this is Rik and Ade, their relationship is bang on formula. Rik is the victim of constant abuse from his best friend, as Ade concocts ways to extort Richie for money and cause as much physical pain as possible. The show was not considered anything classic at the time, however it has always had a solid fan base, and also begins to build up to what Rik would do next, as he prepares to split the slight egomaniac persona from the downtrodden victim. All 6 episodes are free to view on YouTube. The New Statesman. Now, Rik's portrayal of Tony Blair was phenomenal in the show. Sly, cunning, and with a flagrant disregard for anyone else in his never-ending quest for more power. What? This wasn't a Tony Blair parody? Really? Rik plays Alan Bastard, a fictional character that was the embodiment of everything wrong with the Conservative Party and the Thatcherites back in the 80s. Wow, Mr. Blair, you did a good impression of Alan Bastard then, didn't you? The show's focus is on the devious and outlandish schemes Bastard formulates to achieve his goals of wealth and power. This time, Rik has his own victim in the form of a bumbling public schoolboy, Piers Fletcher Dervish, played by Michael Troughton. Piers had audiences' sympathy as he perpetually fell victim to Alan's nefarious plans and never got his reward when the schemes worked out. My favourite scene in the whole show was the moment when you thought Alan was finally going to show some humanity and give Piers his much-deserved reward. However, it turns out to be a scene of classic bastard. Again, this show can be found online, and it is a must-see as it highlights how even almost 2 decades later, politics has not changed for the better. Now that's pretty impressive, to be able to make a statement on the state of government that is timeless. Both impressive for being so on the money and smart at satirising something, and also impressive that politicians do not appear to have developed any sense of morals since the 80s. Drop Dead Fred. Now this film was a must-watch for any kid at the time, well, British kids anyway, as it seems to have a lot of hate stateside. The interesting thing about Drop Dead Fred was that it held a 15 certificate upon release, and yet all kids got to watch it since their parents knew what Rik Mayall was all about. The film's attraction beyond Rik for kids was a zany plot. Fred was the imaginary friend all parents dread and all kids dream of having. With endless great catchphrases, an addiction to destruction and mayhem, and a fixation on dog poo, well, it just made Fred a hit. Also, the special effects. I remember everyone seeing the trailer and instantly wanting to see it for the fridge scene. Now for years, Rik had made getting heads slammed in fridge doors a staple of his slapstick. However, what with Fred being a living cartoon character, this allowed for some cartoon Looney Tune type moments, mixed in with Rik's brand of comedy. I have always said that in 1991, had Drop Dead Fred been a financial hit in the US, Rik would have been going head to head with Jim Carrey for those early 90s zany comic roles. Richard. Bottom ran from 1991 to 1995 with 18 fantastic episodes of pure comedy gold over 3 series. This is a classic among classics. So where do you begin with this show? It was such a hit and it is loved so fondly that it's pretty much impossible to be summed up so easily. Well, I'll give it a go. Richard and Edward Elizabeth Hitler live in a squalid flat in Hammersmith, and whereas some previous characters had adopted a running motive for Rik's actions, in Bottom it pretty much is just trying to survive from the start to the end of each episode without getting your knackers lovingly caressed by a cricket bat. So my favourite episodes, all of them. However, Gas and Hole are a highlight, as well as Bottoms Up, Bottoms Out, Digger, and yeah, as I said, fuck it, all of them. The most interesting thing though about Hole is how it is a great example of comedic writing talent, since the entire episode consists of just the 2 main characters in one location for 30 minutes. Now that takes some serious genius to keep an audience laughing and engaged. As well as the series, there are 5 outstanding live shows. I had the pleasure of going to the last 3 of them in Hammersmith. As you would expect, the live shows were louder, cruder, a lot more swearing. However, the real highlight of the stage shows, hands down, is when the lads go off script. Well, for some years, they had a script, apparently. When Rik and Aid lose the plot and go off track, their back and forth is superb, and mixing abusive replies to hecklers, well, you get pure gold. I remember sitting in the audience for Hooligans Island, and everyone in the audience was just waiting for when "Avawank" would be hurled towards the stage, and if any of us were actually brave enough to do it ourselves. Would any of us actually step forward and reuse the immortal heckle from Bottom Live 2? Once again, the live show is on YouTube. Lord Flashheart. Huzzah! Yes, I will cheat in the top 6 again. No sissy rules can boss me around. Woof! Lord Flashheart, the man every man wants to be, and every woman would get a sex change so they could be him as well. Arrogant, dashing, and constantly on the prowl for the ladies. Lord Flashheart is the opposite of Richard. Women swoon at his feet, and even the men. It appears it's only Blackadder who is impervious to his charms. Appearing in episode 1, season 2 of Blackadder, Flashheart bursts in on Edmund's wedding and absconds with his bride in one of the most legendary scenes in British television history. The character reappears in season 4, Blackadder Goes Forth, as the daring squadron commander Lord Flashheart, and as Robin Hood in the special Blackadder Back and Forth. Sadly, there was never a special Adventures of Lord Flashheart spin-off episode. However, that is probably a good thing, since the true joy of the character was that with each episode of Blackadder airing, the audience was always anticipating would he make a barnstorming entrance, and since there were so few of them, it made his appearance all that more satisfying. Rik. Was there ever any doubt? The people's poet that basically started it all for me. Rik was a self-proclaimed spokesman for a generation. This can now be seen as life imitating art, as Rik did indeed become the spokesman for a whole generation. Realistically, Rik is the kind of character that you should hate. He's obnoxious, attention-seeking, and self-involved. However, something about him just makes him fucking awesome. Well, it is a fact, there's no real proof of this, but it's a fact nonetheless, that at the time, everyone pretty much did divide themselves into 2 camps. You had the Rik camp, which was the side I took, and then you had Camp Vivian. So I guess all in all best friends end up being Rik Mayall or Aid Edmondson. My favourite episode of Young Ones is a bit of a cliche. However, Bambi was the best, not only for the gags, but the art imitating life aspect. Scumbag College, represented by the alternative comedy boys, take on the Footlights team from Oxbridge, and that pretty much was a representation of the 2 comedic factions at the BBC. I remember watching this show and loving the random skits, random musical interludes, and the endless fourth wall breaks. In fact, Rik Mayall is famous for never sticking within 3 walls. It was unique, ahead of its time, right for its time, and perfect for all time. Because once in every lifetime, a show does come along like this.
Once in every lifetime comes a love like this.